Renewing your mind daily is not just a habit. It's a lifeline. It's the spiritual oxygen that keeps your purpose alive when the world tries to suffocate it. Every morning, before the noise of life comes rushing in, you have a sacred moment, an appointment with your future, to decide what voice you're going to let shape your day. And let me tell you, the loudest voice isn't always the one that's right. The world is loud. Fear is loud. Doubt is loud. But God still speaks in a whisper because He wants you to draw close enough to hear Him. The truth is, your mind is a battlefield. And the enemy knows he can't steal your destiny. So he tries to poison your thoughts. He sends distractions disguised as entertainment, temptations disguised as opportunities, and negativity disguised as reality. But when you renew your mind, when you intentionally fill your heart and spirit with truth, with wisdom, with vision, you are telling heaven, I choose to live above the noise. Think about a seed planted in the ground. If you leave it neglected, ignored, untouched, it doesn't grow, it withers. But if you water it every day, expose it to light, and protect it from weeds, it begins to break through the soil with new strength. That's your mind. That's your spirit. That's your potential. What you expose it to determines what breaks through in your life. Some people wake up and immediately feed their fears by scrolling through everybody else's highlight reels, comparing their beginning to someone else's breakthrough. But you, if you're listening to this, you're choosing something different. You're choosing wisdom over worry. You're choosing perspective over pressure. You're choosing growth over stagnation. And that choice is what separates those who dream from those who rise. The more you renew your mind, the more you begin to see what God has been trying to show you all along. Ideas become clearer. Purpose becomes sharper. Peace becomes stronger. You start noticing blessings that were always there, but hidden behind the clutter of your thoughts. You begin walking with a confidence that doesn't come from who you are, but from who guides you. Every day, you get the chance to reset, to realign, to recalibrate your spirit. You're not responsible for the waves that come, but you are responsible for the anchor you drop. And renewing your mind, choosing what you watch, what you read, what you listen to. That is your anchor. That's the decision that keeps you grounded when life tries to shake you loose. It's the decision that says, my circumstances may change, but my spirit won't. This is why what you watch every day matters. It's why what you meditate on matters. Because your thoughts are architects. They build the life you eventually step into. And when your mind is renewed daily, you don't just survive the day, you shape it. You lead it. You rise above it. You walk into it knowing that you are aligned, strengthened, and ready for whatever God has prepared for you. Recognizing your God-given identity changes everything. Because the moment you understand who you truly are, the world loses its power to define you. Too many people walk through life wearing labels someone else slapped on them. Labels from their past, from their failures, from the people who couldn't see the greatness God hid inside them. But hear me today. You are not the names life called you. You are the name God gave you. Your identity is not determined by the storms you've survived, but by the one who carried you through them. People may remember your mistakes, but God remembers your purpose. People may judge you by your moments, but God sees your entire destiny. And when you begin to see yourself the way He sees you, you stop settling for less than what you were created for. You stop shrinking to fit places God has outgrown in your life. You stop apologizing for being gifted, for being chosen, for being called. There comes a moment when you must stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and say, I am more than what happened to me. I am more than what I lost. I am more than what others think. Because God didn't breathe life into you for you to sit in the shadows of doubt. He breathed life into you so you could walk boldly in your calling, even when you don't feel qualified. You may not realize it yet, but heaven has whispered things about you that earth has not yet seen. God has spoken promises over you in secret that life will reveal in due time. And when you recognize your identity in Him, you start living with a sense of holy confidence. Not arrogance, not ego, but a grounded assurance that says, if God is for me, what can stand against me? I remember a time when I felt completely overlooked, when it seemed like every door was locked and every opportunity was out of reach. I wondered why God would choose someone like me. And then it hit me, God doesn't choose the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. He doesn't look for perfection. He looks for availability. And when you understand that your identity rests in Him, you stop worrying about being enough, because you realize He is more than enough for both of you. Your identity is your foundation. When the world shakes, when people disappoint you, when plans fall apart, your identity in God remains the same. You are chosen. You are equipped. You are loved beyond measure and purposed beyond understanding. Nothing anyone says can reduce the value God placed on your life. Nothing you've been through can cancel the assignment He wrote for you before you were born. This is why recognizing your God-given identity is so powerful. It shifts your posture. You walk differently. You talk differently. You dream differently. You pray differently. You make decisions based on destiny, not insecurity. You start moving like someone who belongs to a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And once you fully grasp that identity, you become unstoppable, not because of your strength, but because of the one who strengthens you. Walking by faith and not by feelings is one of the greatest battles you will ever fight, because feelings are loud, demanding, and unpredictable. They shift with the weather, with moods, with disappointments, with the opinions of people who don't even know your purpose. Feelings will tell you to give up when you're one step away from breakthrough. Feelings will convince you that God is silent when he's actually working behind the scenes. Feelings make the temporary seem permanent and the painful seem personal. But faith is different. Faith is steady. Faith is rooted. Faith is anchored in something deeper than emotion. Faith doesn't need a good day to be strong. Faith doesn't wait for everything to make sense. Faith doesn't get intimidated by storms or shaken by delays. Faith says, even if I don't feel it, I know God is moving. Even if I can't see it, I trust his hand. Faith reminds you that God doesn't operate on your emotions. He operates on his promises. There are moments in life when you can't rely on what you feel because what you feel will lie to you. You may feel unqualified, but faith says you are chosen. You may feel alone, but faith says he will never leave you. You may feel defeated, but faith says victory is already written. Feelings change with circumstances, but faith stands on truth. And when you choose truth over emotion, you open the door for God to do what feelings could never accomplish. I remember seasons when I waited for my feelings to catch up with my calling. I wanted to feel brave before stepping out, feel confident before speaking up, feel ready before moving forward. But I learned something. If you wait for feelings to give you permission, you will stay stuck where God never intended you to stay. God doesn't ask, do you feel strong? He asks, will you trust me? Because strength comes after obedience, not before. Faith requires movement, small steps, big steps, sometimes trembling steps, but steps nonetheless. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel spiritual. You won't always feel powerful. But God honors movement. He honors the person who says, Lord, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing. I don't know how this will turn out, but I'm stepping. And when you step, heaven shifts. The beautiful thing about faith is that it sees beyond the moment. It looks past the frustration and focuses on the future God promised. It doesn't deny the struggle. It just refuses to let the struggle be the final word. Faith isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about believing that God can use everything, even the imperfect parts, to lead you to your purpose. When you walk by faith, you build spiritual muscles. You develop stamina, resilience, and clarity. You start realizing that your feelings don't control your destiny. Your faith does. You understand that obedience is more powerful than fear, that trust is stronger than doubt, and that courage grows in the exact places where your feelings tried to stop you. Walking by faith means choosing purpose over comfort. It means taking bold steps even with shaking hands. It means believing that God's plan is bigger than your limitations. Because at the end of the day, faith doesn't ask you to feel ready. It asks you to be willing. It asks you to take the next step, even when the next step is all you can see. Breaking free from limiting voices is one of the most liberating experiences you will ever have, because for far too long, many of us have allowed the wrong voices to write the story of our lives. Some voices come from our past, echoing old wounds that should have healed by now. Some come from people who never understood our calling, yet felt qualified to comment on it. And some voices come from our own insecurities, whispering doubts that were never meant to take root in our spirit. But there comes a point when you must decide who carries the most authority over your destiny. Every great calling attracts criticism. Every rising soul attracts resistance. The moment you start growing, you will hear voices that say you're moving too fast, dreaming too big, reaching too high. But what they don't realize is that God didn't call them to understand your vision. He called you to walk it out. You can't let people who have settled in life convince you to settle in yours. Some individuals can only handle you in one version, and the moment you start evolving, they get uncomfortable because your growth exposes their stagnation. You must be careful about who you let speak into your life, because not every voice carries truth. Some voices are rooted in fear, and fear is contagious. Some voices are rooted in jealousy, and jealousy blinds people from seeing the greatness in you. Some voices are rooted in their own pain, so they project their brokenness onto your future. And if you're not intentional, you will start repeating words that were never meant for you to believe. I've learned that God often speaks quietly, but doubt shouts loudly. And if you don't silence the noise, you'll miss the direction. There are opportunities you won't recognize, blessings you won't receive, and levels you won't reach if you keep letting the wrong voices take up space in your mind. Sometimes God will even separate you from certain people, not to punish you, but to protect the calling He placed inside you. He knows that some connections cannot go where He's taking you next. You have to remember that you were never meant to fit into every circle, every room, every expectation. You were called to stand out, called to rise, called to carry something that others might not understand. And when you truly grasp that the negative voices lose their power, you stop seeking validation from people who can't see the value God planted in you. You stop bending your identity to match environments that were never meant to contain your purpose. You stop allowing small-minded opinions to determine the direction of your destiny. Breaking free from limiting voices means embracing the truth that God's word is final. If He said you're chosen, then no voice of criticism can unchoose you. If He said you're anointed, no voice of doubt can anoint you. If He said you're destined, no voice of insecurity can cancel what heaven has already confirmed. You were designed for more than the limitations others tried to place on you. And when you finally rise above those voices, when you decide to tune into God's frequency and silence the noise, you begin to feel a strength within you that was always there, but buried under the weight of other people's opinions. You start stepping into rooms with boldness. You start making decisions with clarity. You start living with a confidence that doesn't depend on applause or approval, because you realize that the one who called you has already validated you. And once you get to that point, no limiting voice can hold you down again. Activating the change within today begins with understanding that transformation doesn't start with a miracle. It starts with a decision. Not tomorrow's decision, not next week's intention, but today's choice. The choice to say, I will no longer wait for life to hand me what God called me to chase. Too many people stand at the edge of breakthrough, staring at what could be, hoping for a sign, a feeling, or a perfect moment. But change doesn't answer to perfect conditions. It responds to courageous action. You don't need everything to make sense before you move. You just need enough faith to take the first step. God never asked you to leap a mountain. He asked you to trust Him with the next footprint. Too often we convince ourselves we're not ready to change because the path looks uncertain. But every great story in Scripture begins with someone who acted before they were comfortable. Moses lifted his staff before the waters parted. David stepped forward before Goliath fell. Peter stepped out of the boat before the water felt like solid ground. The miracle followed the movement. You have power inside you that's been waiting for your participation. God put seeds of greatness in your spirit long before you were born. But seeds don't grow just because they exist. They grow because you tend to them. They grow because you nurture them with discipline, with courage, with prayer, with consistency. The greatest version of you is already living inside of you, but it won't come out until you choose to break old habits, silence old excuses, and rise above old patterns that kept you small. Some of you have been stuck not because you lack ability, but because you've been waiting for the right mood to start. But life doesn't change when you feel ready. Life changes when you act ready. Discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation can inspire you for a moment, but discipline transforms you for a lifetime. You activate change by doing what your future self will thank you for, not what your present self feels like doing. It's time to stop replaying the past like a broken record. Stop rehearsing the hurt. Stop reliving the disappointment. Stop giving your energy to regrets that God has already forgiven. You cannot step into a new season while holding on to the ashes of the old one. Change requires release. It requires unclenching your fist and letting go of what weighs you down. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's doubt. Maybe it's comfort. Whatever it is, today is the day you put it down and declare that it will no longer direct your life. When you decide to activate the change within, heaven responds. Doors you couldn't open begin to shift. Strength you didn't know you had begins to rise. Opportunities you thought were out of reach begin to come closer. And it's not because everything suddenly became easier. It's because you became aligned. When your actions match your calling, when your discipline matches your desire, when your faith matches your steps, you become unstoppable. This is your moment to draw a line in the sand and step over it. To say, I may not control everything around me, but I will control what I choose today. To rise with a renewed mind, a strengthened spirit, and a determined heart. Change begins the moment you stop wishing and start walking. The moment you stop hoping and start doing. The moment you stop waiting for a sign and realize you are the sign. You are the evidence that God is not done. You are the proof that purpose still breathes inside you. Today is your day to activate the change within. Not by might, not by feeling, but by a decision that says, I refuse to stay where I've been. I am stepping into who God created me to be. And when you make that choice, everything in your life begins to shift with it.